Now you can either use paper and masking tape if you're going to be using air dry clay, or you can use just scrap aluminum foil. You can get it off of candy bars. These little scraps work fine too, so don't throw away those kinds of things. You can also the lids to a lot of yogurts and things like that, a little bit thicker. That works great too. And we're going to build up the skull that way. If you're going to use polymer clay, then you want to use the aluminum foil. And we're going to build up the skull this way. Now a realistic figure is between 6.5 and 7, I should say 6 and 7 heads tall. And this is for an adult. It depends on the individual. It can vary somewhat. But this just fills out kind of the inside of the skull so that your polymer clay doesn't get too thick. This is a pretty small figure, and so if you don't do this, it's not the end of the world. I don't think anything terrible is going to happen to your polymer clay, but this helps save on that expensive polymer clay. So don't build up the neck too much, because you don't want to have a super muscular neck. Okay, so that's probably enough. Now, if you are going to use polymer clay, now is when you need to sculpt your face. Because if you wait and use this material, you won't be able to bake the polymer clay, and that will be a big nightmare for you. So this is the point where you decide whether you want to use polymer clay or whether you want to use air dry clay. Okay, so this figure is approximately 4 inches tall. So it's about 1 inch taller than this figure, or about 1/2 inch, I guess. And so we want the head to be about 1/7, 1/6 to 1/7 of the height. I don't want to add too much polymer clay and end up making the skull way too big. That is always a possibility. When you build up with aluminum foil, you're doing a couple things. You are making it so that the polymer clay has a little bit more of an even thickness, and you're also giving it something to adhere to. But if you have too much of it, it can end up becoming too large. So this is, I'm going to say it's about not quite 4.5. So let's see, so if it's 4.5 and this is about, let's see, it's about 3/4 of an inch. So I'm thinking that that's about right. It might be a little bit on the large side. And this is when you can start to kind of playing with the details and the proportions. So you want, I mean, we're not actually making a skull, we're making a face. So even though it looks white, it's not actually going to be a skull. So profile view, we're going to have the chin kind of jutting out like so. Okay, and then from the front we want the jawline to be fairly symmetrical, and then it's going to kind of come in like so. Okay, and keep checking back and forth. You want the profile to feel natural, and you want the front to feel natural. And it's going to be a little bit hard to tell because it's all one color, and right now we just have the kind of cavities for the eyes. Now I'm not actually going to, that's not what I want. I'm not actually going to add any more clay. I'm going to work this clay around because I don't want to end up making the head bigger and bigger and bigger. So I've made the impressions a lot more extreme, and now I'm kind of smoothing them out just a little bit, making them a little bit gentler so they don't look quite so skeletal. And I'll just show you how to do one ear, and then you can, do both of them. This is the ear canal. It also helps to kind of anchor the ear onto the head. And then we're just going to take this and kind of roll it. Okay, welcome back. After you have baked the polymer clay head, or after you have, well, if you're going to use air dry clay, you can actually wait to create the head until later. But now we're going to use the aluminum foil. From that kind of thicker aluminum foil is a little bit nicer, although you can use a candy wrapper. And we're going to reinforce the areas of the figure that will have long bones. This will keep your legs from bending in places that are unnatural for it, for the different limbs to bend. And you want to leave a nice amount of give where the joints are going to be. So you don't want them to be, right up to where the joints need to be, but you want a little bit of leeway. And then you can just rip it. And then once you've kind of wrapped it, you can twist it so you're pushing one, like the top of it one direction clockwise, say, and then this, the bottom part of it counterclockwise, and that just tightens it really nicely to adhere it. And notice that there's, you know, a nice space for the knee to bend and also for the hip to flex. So you try to wrap it tightly, but it's not going to be quite tight enough. And so that's when you twist it opposite direction, so each hand is twisting it in an opposite direction. And that just really cinches it down nicely. Okay, so the different areas of the limbs where the bones are have been reinforced. And I think actually for this figure, because it's going to be a fantasy figure, I'm going to use this purple self-adhesive bandage, and just notice that it stretches in the direction that these little lines of elastic lie. If you try pulling it the other way, it doesn't stretch so much. Okay, and you can cut this, I mean, you can cut it very, very thinly. You can cut it, you know, any width that you want. Start out with this. And we'll just go ahead and wrap the torso so we can build up the form a little bit in that area. It's very hard to adhere things directly to the wire, and so wrapping it with this to start out with really helps form kind of a base onto which you can add more forms. And this is what's so fun about this. Okay, so we've wrapped it a few different times, and then you just stretch it nice and tightly and just kind of push it onto itself. And it's self-adhesive. Isn't that the coolest thing? Okay, and so you want to wrap it and overlap because you want it to be able to adhere to itself. Okay, we're at the end of the foot. We're going to fold that over and then start working our way back up. Okay, so you pull it so that the elastic is stretched, and then when it overlaps, it will actually adhere to itself. Okay, so this is extending beyond the end of the foot, so I'm just going to bend that back, fold it over, and then this will cover that little fold. For the arms, we're going to use it a little bit thinner pieces. This will keep those aluminum foil bone reinforcements that you wrapped in place as well. See, so now it bends at the elbow. So you always want to cut your strips in the same direction as the little bands of adhesive. And we'll go ahead and use some of this thin foam pre-wrap. So notice that where there are joints, I don't build up the layers of this adhesive as much as where there aren't joints. And that just makes it a little bit easier to pose the figure. And when you tightened it, it will help shape certain areas. So you can shape the waist by pulling that tighter. Okay, so this leg is being built up a little bit, and this leg obviously needs to be. So I'm going to use this pre-wrap, and I'm just going to kind of roll it, and it kind of sticks to itself too. And we're going to use that hamstring muscle and wrap it around like this, and then I've cut this piece. Notice that this is at an angle. I'm going to turn this so that the wider side is up high,